Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where we are taking the Alta Tanker class vessel and making it into a diving support vessel for OMA. Now this is something that myself and Sheppy have been planning for a while now, but of course time dictates a lot of things, and until now we didn't really have the time to get onto this project. But finally, with, call it the Christmas season, we're finally decided to move ahead and make this awesome vessel have a bunch of diving support gear. Now, take a look at this deck. There's a lot of space for all kinds of activities, all kinds of machines, all kinds of equipment. Inside what was previously the hold, you see a huge open space, so this is the perfect vessel that can support diving gear and diving machines. In our research, we found this vessel, the Deep Reach, and it has sort of something that we really thought was cool. Now, this is a vessel by another user, and it is a beautiful build. It's definitely more on the realistic side as you walk through it, but if you take a look here in the control room, you can see that this space gives you access to a moon pool. Now, if you follow my videos, you may know that I've had sort of a desire to make a moon pool for a while now, and with the game now having sort of pressures and all kinds of stuff, I think now's the time for that. So in that video I actually took this vessel and added a moon pool just to show you how that would look, and that was kind of the secret start of this project. Now, Sheppy started off with the project, he took it and kind of went running. So what the very first phase of it had was the rat crane from the container vessel, you can see above here. And then in here, things are kind of going crazy and the system's not really pressurized, but here is the start of a moon pool. After a few iterations, this is the final product, or not final product, the working product I got from Sheppy. If you open this up, what was previously the supply closet now gets us into this area. And this area is sort of where you can either go into the main control room, which overlooks the moon pool, and you see all the computer gear everywhere, or you can go down here to where the divers can access the water. So this is going to have sort of a little stretcher here that can be dropped down from this winch. Now over here is a pressurized moon pool. Technically they're both pressurized, otherwise water will come in, but anyways, you go through this airlock, and here is a mini sub. Now this actually opens from the top, and you have access to this huge pool where you could deploy gear. Now over here is my new diving bell that I worked on. You can see it right here, but after some tests, I do think it'll be better coming from a standalone craft specifically built for this vessel. The other thing to consider, or the other thing that was considered, is here is sort of a diver recovery area. After they get out of that diving bell, they're gonna have, they'll be at a different pressure and stuff, so that's where they can go to acclimatize to the actual pressure of the atmosphere here. As with any project, I do like to have a sketch. This is something that Sheppy 5 made, and you can actually see here we did change the layout a little bit since the creation of this sketch, but it does give us the idea. So we have the moon pool, saturation chamber, ops room, saturation control, containers, the diving bell can be deployed, all kinds of stuff. Now we optimized it because this would actually have you lift the diving bell, put it on the deck. Now we just have it go straight into the hull. So other changes that we made throughout, but this was the starting point. It's super cool to look back and kind of see where that came from. Now here's my version of the vessel, the working version that I'm working on currently, and you can see right away a few things. First of all, obviously that button will not be there, but we can open up this door and you see here this massive space where you can deploy gear and store it on this part of the deck. Now, it would be good to fit ISO container sizes, and I guess I could also expand the vessel, make it a little longer, but I did find having a doorway, a hatchway from here also to be quite nice. So that's what you find here. And I then went and kind of started cleaning up things. Now, one thing I'll show you in a sec, but anyways, this won't be called the supply closet anymore. This will now be the entering of the compressed area or pressurized area. And now, when you enter here, this in theory is all pressurized. Here is that door to the outside, but you have to hold that button in order for you to pass through, because it will release some of the air, the pressurized air. So you do have to kind of do that, but that's okay. That's more like an emergency exit. Over here is the ops center. I went and cleaned everything out. It is difficult for me to sort of, well, I'm sure any creator will let you know, but pretty much starting with something that someone else did in terms of a framework like this is awesome and super useful, but starting with controls that may or may not be connected fully, I prefer to do my own. So I cleared out the ops room. We're going to do that. Added this window here, and now down here we have this area, and you could see I actually took the stretcher out of the RSV class vessels that I'm using. I didn't attach that, and now because everything's pressurized, we just get a nice little door here and a massive moon pool here. Now this area here is under construction. Previously this is how you'd get into the diving bell, and then somehow this would be closed off, sealed off with a stair or an elevator to get you up here. But because of just, I think purpose built will work better in this case, especially because this vessel has a lot of capabilities. So I am going to go ahead and actually remove the new diving bell I made. That diving bell, I really love it, but I think that the diving bell itself is something that's really good to put into an existing creation. Something that, you know, something that you just throw it on and all of a sudden it works. But as far as working in here, I wasn't quite sold. So I am going to change up this area, and because of that, even we don't need this full space there. Now this is a very nice, cool, modern area where the saturation divers can hang out. I'm probably gonna block some of this up here with a little helipad that we could then place a helicopter, and it'll give us the ultimate flexibility when it comes to using this vessel in the game. This really does remind me of the Lego set that comes with a vessel similar to this that has a moon pool and it has a bunch of stuff. So I'm just going to embellish it at this point. It's a cool set. I do like the other vessel that I showed you by the other users that had kind of like a containerized system look on the deck here, but this is ultimately going to give us a lot of flexibility and space for storing gear here and in here. You may have noticed I've been making all kinds of watercrafts, from diving bells to submarines and mini subs, and kind of refreshing my systems, so that's going to be perfect here. Now we start to work. So there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of different areas and aspects here, but one thing that is sort of a low-hanging fruit is the crane. I want to get the crane modified. I don't need to have it pick up containers anymore, so we don't need any of these expanding things. All we'll really need are these small winches and probably some more winches to just drop equipment from the deck down into the hold. I don't think it's bad to have the capability to drop down this whole kind of green thing down on these tracks, especially because it will let us get closer to the hold. Now, actually, no, it won't. See, it's gonna hit this upright standing door. So really, we don't even need this feature here. It's just gonna add an extra body and more leg to the game. A little bit of painting and a little bit of reorganization on the gantry crane. I did want to add a way to climb up on top of it, especially if you're trying to disconnect some of the winches. So now you have that. But of course, I couldn't make the stairs go down all the way, and I didn't want random ladders. So now you can actually walk beneath it or grab these ladders and climb up to the stairs. A slight revamp on the stairs, and now it seems we're done. So as you can see here, it is a little clunky, but overall I do think it looks good and it adds a good functionality. Having spent around 20 minutes messing with this controller, reminded myself of why I like to kind of make things from scratch rather than trying to retrofit something that had the pusher and the gantry and all that stuff, but we'll overcome. Everything seems to be inverted, but the thing is working, so that's definitely a good sign. And yeah, we have the gantry operational. The idea is that you can also operate it with the remote, or you can operate it from this chair, so you get a bunch of different options. The camera system I'm gonna have to tie in, but for now the thing's working. So this seat allows you to see what the camera sees. I think the whole gantry crane is inverted, that's why it's seeing opposite, and that's why it was moving opposite. But anyway, downstairs in the other room, we're going to have a whole CCTV system of all the operations. So here we just operate the gantry crane, that's the only thing on deck. The rest will actually be very much something that you use for the whole ship. Another little detail, you can open the Moonpool cover here. So you get this thing in position and you can have it pretty much drop things right into the Moonpool area. Now, this is flooded, so I have to take a look at what is going on in here, but other than that, the crane is operational. That'll do it. Me clearing the shaft for this diving bell obviously opened up the area to the environment. And now, back to working normally. So, perfect. I'm quite happy with this solution and what happened here, and then we'll see kind of other things as we add them. Also, to supplement the new ship, there's a new ROV. It is the RL, or remote large, or technically, I guess the same size, a little taller, but it does have two large batteries, or two medium-sized batteries, so it does have a better range, and it has the thruster, so it does have a better top speed. So this is the one we're going to be putting in the new vessel. Inside the Moonpool area, we will need a gantry crane, so another overhead crane that I'm going to put, but this one's going to be pretty simplistic. It's not really going to need to have so much things. It's more so just to pick up equipment and move it into here and back into their spots wherever the cradle may be. The one thing that is important is that we could reach the winch, so when we are putting cables and attaching stuff, it's a pretty easy access. So you could see this thing doesn't need to be super complicated, especially maybe we don't even need to have the moving left and right function like we have here. It is nice, but even here, in theory, we'll have a mini sub, for example, so you don't really need to have the left and right. Down here would in essence make more sense to have the left and right functionality, only because we're not going to have things in the center. We're going to have things offset. We'll have maybe the ROV here, a sea scooter here, but with enough winches, you should be able to figure it out. And if you're picking up something very small, you might want to have a winch point right in the middle. So between these, you should be able to have decent access to whatever it is you're trying to pick up from the Moonpool. Nothing else really requires my brain power too much, except for the diving bell. That's kind of the bane of my existence right now. I was hoping I could just use the existing systems I have, but it seems I can't. And I actually take it back, that ended up being a lot more fun than I thought it would. So first of all, while the divers are taking a break, they're going to have a huge dropped down living room picture window area of the Moonpool. And of course I'll put a little couch, a kitchenette, some creature comforts. Over here we have kind of 3 beds for resting. And of course in here is where the diving bell is. And I did have to reconfigure the diving bell, but the nice thing is now we're actually going to be providing 2 lines. One is for the air, one is for the electricity. So with that now, we'll actually always have the right orientation, and it should always pair up right with that door. So one little neat thing you'll notice, you have to kind of go down a few steps here, and here is the sort of diver chamber area, and we're gonna have it pressurized. So when you are in here, it'll kind of match whatever the diving bell is. But if you press this door, you see that? Both of them open, and then they should both close. And once they've closed, you're ready for your mission. You can see on the camera there that you have... Actually, I do have a toggle button somewhere, and that's causing this. So anyway, point is, the systems open up, you can enter and make your way down via the Moonpool and into whatever it is you're trying to explore with the diving bell. Up here I put a safety railing so you can't really fall through the crack. I mean, of course you can, but if you're in that area, that's your own fault. So that's looking pretty good actually. And again, we have the main room here, and you can see the living space over there. So it'll be very modern, very kind of open, and I think it'll look great when it's wrapped up and finished. It'll look just like the rest of the Alta creations that I have. It'll flow very nicely. Of course, I meant OMA, as this is an OMA vessel, and some of the details inside we're going to get to in here. Utilizing the microcontroller dock door push button that I showed in my other tutorial video, we can get the buttons working simultaneously. They'll open and close the doors on both ends. So whether you're trying to get in or out of the diving bell, you press this button, it'll open both doors as long as it is attached. The diver's chambers are looking much better now, and with the addition of the door here, kind of these bed areas, the last thing to make it functional is the airlock system, or the system for the pressure. So we can have the pressure here, and this indicator green means that it's ready to open or openable, and then this one here means that it's not pressurized, or it's pressurized, therefore you can open it. With this whole system, obviously pressure built up by going in the diving bell, it's not so deep, so really this whole process and thing isn't necessary, right? Your character doesn't take damage by going to the pressures under the water unless you go too far down, in which case nothing can help you. There's no depressurization, that's what I'm trying to say. So this whole area is not strictly needed. So for that reason, I guess I'm trying to make it quite optimized and not a headache, because the last thing I want to do here is force you to sit through half an hour of decompression every time. There's going to be overrides, there's going to be all kinds of stuff. If you want to roleplay and use the system for the pressurization, you can. If you want to just barge through, you can still do that. So for that reason, I have to come up with a system, a microcontroller system, that gives us kind of the best overall setup that's not going to impede players too much if they don't want to do the role-playing style kind of decompression here. In the RSV Akimbo, I have something similar. We have this airlock that you use to get inside the laboratory that has the little mini game. So inside this one, you have to have the moon suit, and here we actually have the airlock at a high pressure at all time. We're not going to do that here. In this one, we're actually going to prevent something like that. So what you're going to have is the system will... To facilitate this, I've added this bottom hatch here, so divers could actually enter the chamber through the diving moon pool or from this outside door. Now, the microcontroller itself, obviously, I will not have a 20-minute decompression chamber. Instead, it's going to be a few minutes or whatever, even less if hopefully possible, just to kind of give the illusion and kind of work with what a real diver would do. Obviously, real divers under real high pressures take days or hours, but in this case we're kind of making it a little more Stormworks-ized. So we have this fun microcontroller of all kinds of things. It's going to operate both the pump here, that's going to run the pump inside here, building up pressure in the diving bell, and it'll run the pumps for the actual chamber for the divers so they can match and all that good stuff. Here's the microcontroller for the diver airlock or diver chambers. So first things first, obviously we have the diving bell pressure coming out of the composite. Then if it is not between 1.7 and 2, or we could play with those numbers, and the diving bell's not docked, then turn on the diving bell pump. Then of course we compare that with the pressure in the chamber. If that's active, it's going to pump air in. If the pressure of the outside air is not equal to the pressure inside the chamber, then the doors are locked. And lastly, if the thing is docked, the diving bell, and the pressure is unequal, pump out. So just a bit of a big microcontroller, but that's okay, it'll be fun. So for example, now we can walk into the chamber and the diving bell pressure is small, or the same as the exterior atmosphere. So right now I disconnected the diving bell, and as you can see, the pressure is building inside the diving bell, and the pressure is building inside the decompression chamber. So now it's locked uneven unless we do the override, in which case then it should unlock. So something's wrong with the microcontroller, but in theory that is the system. So now I got it working. You could see locked uneven pressure. If we press this, we can open it. If we don't have this pressed, we can open it, and it's building to match the same pressure as in the diving bell. Now of course the diving bell will pressurize much faster because it's a smaller chamber, of course, but eventually you'll get to a point where it will be the same pressure. We'll test that a little more in application, but the overall idea is there. So there you have it. For this video, we have concluded at least the diving decompression chamber. We built some of the other features, including the crane. I just placed the ROV. This is the largest ROV that I've made thus far. It's a little bigger. It still has the same footprint, but it has larger batteries and larger radio antennas, so it can actually go much further. Over there is complete, and now we have to start building these areas, completing the operations center, adding the rest of the displays and crane controllers in here. So stay tuned for the second part. Very happy with how this is going. Let me know in the comments what you think of this build so far. If there's something you'd like to see, of course, I can't implement everything, but I do read the comments and I do take a look at the suggestions that people have. So let us know. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more creation. Stay tuned for more videos. And as always, happy Stormworksing, everyone. See you next time.